while I expect Cooper Kupp to be rather popular this week, I don't expect Cooper Kupp to be paired with his teammate in Kyren Williams very often. Getting that much exposure to an offense through volume that we expect to have success, and accepting the 40 touches, 45 touches maybe, that we're going to get from those two against the Cardinals, I think is going to be a plus EV endeavor this week.
1 week season.
Hey, welcome in OWS fam. Glad you are with us. We are back in the DFS lab presented by 1 week season. Really the purpose of this show is to build a DraftKings lineup and use that as a vehicle to explore the upcoming slate. It is Tuesday, September 10th. We're getting you set for week 2 here on the DFS lab. I'm your host, Cheeseman. I'll be with you here on the DFS lab 4 days a week. If you're joining us for the first time, here's a look at the DFS lab schedule. As you can see, the lineup there on Wednesday, Mike Johnson and Maximus will host that show. That will be FanDuel focused, but then Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, it is DraftKings that we are focused on. And as always, if you find value in this content, make sure to give the channel or give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And with that, he is Hilow, and he joins us now. Hilow, how you doing, man? After week 1, with that being in the rearview mirror, did you get a chance to watch any of the games and enjoy the slate at all?
Yeah. So I was watching football all Sunday. I need to go back and watch a couple of the games that I didn't. So that'll give me a good idea. Like picking out things that we thought we knew that are now different, which was like the theme of last week's episode.
Right.
So being able to go through and watch all the games, I need to get through 3 or 4 still. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we learned last week.
What were some of the things that stood out to you right off the top that we learned, but also just things that maybe we saw that might not be the case for the rest of the season? Because I mean, they don't call it Overreaction Monday for nothing, even though it is Tuesday.
There were some teams that underperformed based on what I saw on the field, and there were some teams that overperformed based on what I saw on the field. A good example from each, the Raiders, their offense, the scheme, the design, the situational play calling was all really good. But they don't have a quarterback who can sit there in the pocket, read a defense, and deliver a football on time and make it through his progressions. Like the offensive design, the offensive scheme, what I saw was great. There was pre-snap motion, there was misdirection, there was heavy play action, there were layered routes. This offense looked like it was designed well. But then you had Gardner Minshew back there with happy feet after his first read and not able to deliver a football on time. You see multiple times. And this is something that like it hurts me so bad just to see Devontae Adams streaking down the middle of the field with his hands in the air. And just for the last season plus, like no one's been able to give him football. Like this offense looked good. So Luke Getsy's done a good job getting this team ready. They need a quarterback that can deliver the football, get through his progressions. Like Gardner Minshew, he was one read, happy feet, like the entire game. And it's like, man, their offensive line is not bad. Like they have a pretty good offensive line. So this offense could be something if they get a quarterback. And like I said it on Twitter late or like on Sunday, it was like they need to get on the phone with Ryan Tannehill. And it was actually one of the members in Discord that shouted that because Tannehill would be a perfect fit for this offense, and it probably won't cost them a lot. They should. I don't think they will, but they should get on the phone with Tannehill because he could make this offense hum. Yeah. Then there's a lot of other examples. I'm not going to take the entire time of this session. We'll get that in other forms this week. But an offense that I thought overperformed relative to kind of what I saw was actually the Ravens. This offensive line is going to be a problem for them. Sad Derrick Henry just keeps bouncing to teams with poor offensive lines, but yeah, that's what I saw. So obviously it's week 1. These teams are figuring a lot out, and we saw it in week 1. Scoring was mega down. Quarterback play was atrocious. So these teams will continue to figure it out. But there's still a long way to go for a lot of these squads.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of things I just wanted to at least get your thoughts quickly before we move into the lineup building process. Jaden Daniels with 16 rushing attempts. Can we expect that moving forward? Was that more just a result of Todd Bowles and the way he likes to run defenses? And then Josh Allen, I mean, he had a great game, but it wasn't really clear, like, who do you really stack him with in this offense? He obviously had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Any just quick thoughts on those situations?
Yeah, with Jaden Daniels, we talked about it throughout the week at 1 week season. I said that I was down on Jaden Daniels for best ball, but he woke up in week 1 to the optimal matchup he will see all season for rushing upside. Why is that? We knew that Todd Bowles was going to be bringing the heat. We knew that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 3 starting defensive linemen that were out of this game. So what did we expect? We expected a lot of nickel, a lot of 5 defensive backs on the field, and we expected unique blitzes from those defensive backs. And that's what we saw. We saw linebacker looks, we saw safety blitzes. And why that's important is because if you're playing from nickel with 5 defensive backs on the field and you're sending one on these unique Todd Bowles blitzes, now you have the gaps in that second layer for rushing production from a quarterback. And that's kind of what we saw. And that was important leading into the week because Jaden Daniels in his last collegiate season, he had a 30% scramble rate when pressured. So this Washington piecemeal offensive line was not going to stop these unique Todd Bowles blitzes. And we saw it. Jaden Daniels was a one-read quarterback, and he was tucking and running. And they in Cliff Kingsbury's interview post-game, they asked him, hey, is 16 Jaden Daniels carries going to be the norm? He was like, listen, guys, not all those were designed. So that was exactly what we saw. And he was putting up an extremely mundane performance until the fourth quarter when they scored those 2 touchdowns and they started moving the ball. But if you look at like the spray chart of Jaden Daniels, he attempted 1 pass beyond 15 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Wow. That's crazy.
And this is Cliff Kingsbury. And this is why I was down on this guy coming into the year for best ball. But all that to say, like, I don't know, was I right for best ball? I know that we were right for DFS because we identified a spot that could unlock his rushing upside. I do not expect that moving forward. What really, really concerns me is the fact that they had 1 deep ball pass attempt. And it was Terry McLaurin was open. He beat his defender in man coverage. He was streaking down the sideline, and Jaden Daniels just overthrew him. So I need to see more vertical component in this offense. And I don't think we're going to get it with Cliff Kingsbury. So that was a big takeaway there. With Josh Allen, like, he just did Josh Allen things, man. Like, he's so competitive and so athletic and so good that, like, he doesn't necessarily need an alpha pass catcher. As far as like stacking moving forward, it was concerning that Dawson Knox played as much as he did. We kind of expected increased 12 rates, but that didn't necessarily come at the expense of Dalton Kincaid. So I expect a little bit more Kincaid moving forward. But that kind of transpired, that game transpired kind of exactly as we broke it down on the Slate podcast on Saturday. It's like, we expect Buffalo to be successful and find the end zone. But if we look at the tendencies from last year and what their personnel is this year, how are they scoring? Like Dalton Kincaid had 0 red zone touchdowns last season. All 3 of his touchdowns came outside of the red zone. And then they didn't use James Cook heavy in the red zone last year. So what did we expect? We expected like schemed usage to Khalil Shakir, who scored on a 10-yard screen. And we expected Josh Allen to kind of just do Josh Allen things. And that's exactly what happened. So as far as like moving forward, it's going to be tough finding these stacking partners for Josh Allen. But if we expect them to succeed, we can start taking these very directed bets on that offense and saying like, matchup against Arizona, we expect them to score points. It's probably going through Josh Allen. And then we can kind of make these directional bets from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Let's jump into the lineup building process. We got DraftKings pulled up here, and you wanted to talk about or build a lineup for the Millionaire Maker or just the Millionaire. I don't know if they're still calling it the Millionaire Maker or not, but nonetheless, 555. So let's just open that up. And obviously, this is just kind of an appetizer because it's so early in the week still.
Yeah.
Obviously Tuesday, so much can change between now and then. Obviously, the health of Christian McCaffrey is going to be massive to monitor. But as we kind of look at this on a Tuesday, what are you looking at to start in terms of game environments and things you want to target?
So in a contest like this, 6,000 entries, it's similar in size to the $100 SPY, which has like 4,444 entries. It's not a single entry, but the field size is kind of comparable. So where I want to start my roster building process for this week is looking for the places where we expect a high certainty, we don't want to use certainty, but a high confidence in success. Last week, we kind of started that discussion with Josh Allen against the Cardinals, and we're going to kind of go back to picking on the Cardinals here. Again, a 32nd ranked defensive line, 32nd ranked linebacker unit, 32nd ranked secondary. So it's like this defense on paper is not good. And Jonathan Gannon is going to do some unique stuff to overperform that talent level. High quarters coverage rate, high dime defensive looks as far as what we expect from him. But this defense is not good. So when we see the Rams coming into town, into Arizona, when we see Puka Nacua hitting IR, we expect this offense to find success, and we expect them to be extremely concentrated. So while I expect Cooper Kupp to be rather popular this week, I don't expect Cooper Kupp to be paired with his teammate in Kyren Williams very often. Okay. Now, it's a little early in the week, like we talked about. The Rams had 3 offensive line injuries last week, so that is something to pay attention to. But Kyren was the quote-unquote workhorse back last week. So getting that much exposure to an offense through volume that we expect to have success, I think just pairing Kyren Williams with Cooper Kupp and accepting the 40 touches, 45 touches maybe that we're going to get from those two against the Cardinals, I think is going to be a plus EV endeavor this week. So we'll start it there.
So you want a Cooper Kupp and Kyren Williams in there?
Yeah.
So and Cooper Kupp, 21 targets against the Lions. Is that? Obviously that's an insane number, but was that kind of more just because Puka was out and the way the game was going, or do you expect Stafford could lock into him if he? Obviously, again, Stafford also had 49 pass attempts. So
I think it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of, oh shit, we just lost Puka, and it was a little bit of the matchup. The Lions have been notorious for being pass funnel. They have an extremely good top 3, top 2 run defense. And then they lost 3 offensive linemen. So the fact that they kind of went to this quick passing game makes a lot of sense. Against the Cardinals, who we don't expect to be blitzing, we don't expect to be bringing pressure, we don't expect them to be generating pressure in the backfield at a similar rate. This is not a team that has an abundance of pass rush guys that can win one-on-one. So the fact that even the Rams have 3 offensive lineman injuries, it shouldn't matter as much. So while I expect Kupp to not see 21 targets again, we're probably looking at the 10 to 13 target range for Cooper Kupp, but I don't expect these targets to be 3-yard outs every target like it was against the Lions. That was very, very good by Sean McVay to say, hey, this team is getting pressure, and we just lost a bunch of offensive linemen. How do we can't really run on this team, so how do we now move the football? We're going to just work Cooper Kupp over the first 5 yards within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So I don't expect that. Cooper Kupp probably is going to see 10, 11, 12 targets here, but they're probably going to be a little bit more downfield. So Sean McVay is a wizard. So that's what I would expect. Like we said, a lot of volume here between those two guys.
Yeah, man, I like it. I like it a lot. So, are you wanting to pair with a player from the Cardinals in this instance, or do you want to go there next?
I don't necessarily want to, and I don't necessarily want to pair these two with Stafford. So, again, this is kind of more player block mentality based on the field size and just capturing immense volume.
Absolutely. So, do you want to look at quarterback next?
Let's look at quarterback and kind of get our primary game stack exposure going. And this one is gonna be tough. It's a very, very weird week. I expect a lot of the field to go to Jaden Daniels, to go to Anthony Richardson, the guys that kind of finished in the top 5 of the position.
Right.
But with this Washington and Giants game, I think it's gonna just be ugly. Like not ugly good, but just ugly. So there's not a lot for me to like from that spot, and we just got done talking about why that is, Mr. Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah, so looking at this slate, like I'm trying to figure out like what games have the upside and concentration. And there's a lot of good spots like Tampa Bay and Detroit. That game environment has the upside. But now we have like the introduction of Jameson Williams for the Lions, where probably not as concentrated as we would want moving forward. But what I did like is the Buccaneers offense. Yeah, they look good, but it was against the Commanders. But it remained extremely concentrated.
Yeah.
Again, similar discussion to what the Rams had. We just talked about with the Rams last week. We don't expect the Buccaneers to find success on the ground. We expect the Lions to be successful, forcing the Buccaneers into aggression. So I want to start this roster with Baker Mayfield. And I don't know if we're going to have the salary, but I would love actually. Let me think this through. So we're doing this like real time. It's Tuesday, and we haven't had a lot of like obviously prep for this slate.
Exactly. And so it's like, are you thinking, can we fit Mike Evans? Is that what you were thinking, or Chris Godwin?
Yeah, I think let's put Godwin in this roster. Typically not thought of as a ceiling option, typically more thought of as a floor option, but he led the team in targets in week 1. He caught all 8 targets for
Right,
just
yeah.
under 90 yards and score. And this is a guy that I expect to have a different role in this offense, obviously, and we kind of saw that in week 1. And what I liked in week 1 was he had a bigger red zone role. So I think Godwin has a path to these 30-point games this season. And against the Lions, I think is a good chance for that to happen.
And I'm
So
just curious. Or sorry,
go ahead.
I just was curious real fast. Baker Mayfield, 30 pass attempts. So, I mean, that's something that potentially, like you said, if Tampa Bay is forced into more aggression, they can't run the ball, his pass attempts could be a little higher this week against the Lions.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to bring him back, and this might seem point chasey, but we are going to bring him back here, and we're going to do it with JMO.
Like it.
Jameson Williams, definitely different player, different role in this offense. And if you look at Tampa Bay's tendencies, they are going to be bringing those unique blitzes. They still have the defensive line injuries. And that is likely going to lead to a lot of single high alignments on the defense. So what I'm looking for there is JMO to connect on some more of these 40, 50, 60 yarders. And I think that can happen here.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, again, quick thoughts. Amon-Ra St. Brown, just I want to see what he finished with.
Yeah, like the 13 yards.
Yeah, I mean, what happened there? Do you think that the Rams were just kind of really shadowing their coverage and trying to take him away?
The Rams played a lot of soft coverages, and they were really, really trying to clog the middle of the field to simultaneously like handcuff Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So again, that's another defense that kind of overperforms their roster in the Rams. We saw that last season as well. Yeah, I just think that it was more of a schematic thing. I have no issues with Amon-Ra St. Brown moving forward. That's probably a blip. What I am most concerned with is his path to consistent like double-digit targets now with JMO. here.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I totally see that. And just, roles are shifting a bit, and Jameson Williams clearly showing just the game breaking ability that he has. So, okay, yeah, I really like where this is going so far, and I do really like that Tampa Bay Detroit game, and so that's really an exciting option. So do you want to look kind of with 4,600 left, tight end defense? You want to look there to kind of see what shakes out in with the
Well,
remaining two, or where do you want to go here?
let's pencil in Jordan Mason. We don't know Christian McCaffrey. My thinking here is like Jordan Mason in the postgame interview said flat out that he was told on Friday that he was going to be getting the start. So that's probably going to give the league's ears perked up. They're probably going to be like, "Hey, why didn't you put that on the freaking last practice report of the week?"
Yeah,
We don't know when that
seriously.
came. We don't know what happened, but it's very clear that CMC with the calf and with the Achilles going on is not ready. And with this team, they just saw how well Jordan Mason ran against a stout Jets defensive front. Why rush him? So, yeah, this is Tuesday. This could change, but I think that we might see against a Minnesota opponent that they probably aren't overly concerned with, being Kyle Shanahan. We probably see hey, let's just run out Jordan Mason again. He was an absolute workhorse back. And let's just let CMC get right. We're in the tail end of our Super Bowl window. Let's not push things with CMC. So we'll pencil Jordan Mason in here. Obviously that could change, but first look stuff, he makes a lot of sense. Probably going to see significant ownership. And that's an interesting discussion on this roster because we already have Cooper Kupp, who's likely also going to see significant ownership. But the simple act of pairing Kyren with Kupp without their quarterback is you don't need to worry about anything else as far as ownership goes.
Exactly. And like you said, so much of the ownership is probably going to filter to those rushing quarterbacks, Richardson and Daniels. Mayfield is probably going to go a little overlooked.
Yeah, 100%. So with this, let's go to defense. That'll give us a good idea of the salary remaining. And we're just going to pencil in the Jaguars. The Cleveland Browns, both offensive tackles are injured. That could continue into week 2. And the Jaguars defense was one of the pleasant surprises for me from last week. They played a really, really strong game against Miami. They had Miami struggling really to move the football outside of that 80-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So this defense is fast. They are capable of getting after the quarterback. And if you bring an offensive line like the Browns with missing 2 tackles, that's going to be a tough thing to overcome. So a lot of upside with the Jaguars defense.
Yep. Love that call.
All right. So we got 50.5 left. Scroll down and on the tight ends. I want to see right there. It's good. All right. We are going to do Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. His price did not move at all. And this is likely going to be the cheapest he is for the rest of his career against Washington. So another secondary we are attacking. And I think, again, Malik Neighbors is probably going to garner ownership this week, but it's probably going to be tied to Jaden Daniels as game stacks. It's probably going to be fewer one-offs with Malik Neighbors. So that leaves us 4,100. And I wanted to check that pricing because I'm very interested in Pat Freiermuth this week early. We're expecting Justin Fields to get the start again. Justin Fields is another guy. If you look at his spray chart from week 1, very, very minimal downfield work. So now we get Pat Surtain likely traveling against wide receiver's name for
Pickens.
For Pickens. Yeah, he's probably traveling with Pickens this week because Pat Surtain is a guy that they will use to travel in situations where it's they don't have a lot, opponents that don't have a lot of secondary options. So we saw a lot of short field work with Justin Fields. Justin Fields is expected to start again. And they're likely going to have this travel situation against their primary offensive weapon in George Pickens. So Pat Freiermuth kind of checks those boxes as somebody who could take a step forward in this spot. Denver doesn't have a good all around on paper defense outside of Pat Surtain. And this is a spot where Freiermuth could step into 7, 8, 9 looks type thing.
Love it, man. And that wraps it up. I like this build, and I definitely like Baker Mayfield. Who knows if he can replicate it again, but I could definitely see it. Hilow, any wrapping up thoughts here as we get ready to ship this show off?
Yeah, these like we kind of opened it, we'll close it like we opened. These offenses and these teams are still trying to find their identity. So what we saw last week is not gospel. What we thought we knew coming into the season is not gospel. So there's still some significant uncertainties with the league right now, and in particular with how we think these offenses are going to run.
Awesome. Love it. And you probably have it. Where can people find you, Hilow, if they want to follow you on X, I guess, is probably the main place?
Yeah, I do all my stuff on X down there at the bottom of the screen under my picture right there. At HilowFF.
Awesome. Give this man a follow. Hilow, as always, great analysis. Thanks once again for joining us here on the DFS Lab.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. We'll see you guys tomorrow.